Welcome back to the Game Collection. I am Super Derek, and this is Breath of Fire 4. The nature of Breath of Fire 4 is a topic of some debate. Some people just aren't sure if this game is supposed to be a prequel to the other Breath of Fire games or if it takes place in an alternate reality from the other Breath of Fires. Personally, I like to think that this game is a prequel because then the game at least provides some answers regarding the nature of the origin of the Breath of Fire series. Breath of Fire 4 is a game that, for the first time in a long while, has left me feeling unsure about how I really feel about the game. It's truly a story of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or something like that. But let's get into this. So the game starts off with a winged princess named, well, you guessed it, Nina. She is on a journey to try to find her missing sister along with her friend Cray. Along the way, their sand flyer gets damaged by a dragon in the middle of a desert, and within a few minutes, Nina is off exploring on her own. A short while into the game, Nina finds Ryu in a crater, and they just decide to start going along together for apparently no real reason. It's just never really explained why Ryu joins. It's just kind of, I don't know, don't really have anything better to do, so might as well join you. And along they go on their quest. Already, Nina and Ryu are together. Usually in the other Breath of Fire games, there's some sort of questing to be done first that, shows why Ryu cares enough to actually go on this journey. But in this game, it's just kind of assumed that he has this empathy for Nina's situation and therefore wants to go on this quest with her. But it's just kind of assumed, it's never really addressed, and that kind of bugged me a bit. So I start playing through Breath of Fire 4 with the assumption that eventually I'll be given some sort of reason to start caring. And eventually you do, but you have to power through the game for quite a while, a few hours, without really any real motivation, and that just kind of made it hard for me to get into the game. The story of Breath of Fire 4 is probably its weakest point because everything else in the game is near masterful. Breath of Fire 4, much like its predecessors, is a turn-based RPG, but with a twist. It actually borrows a feather from the cap of Breath of Fire 1, allowing you to change out your party members at any given point, even in mid-battle. It's kind of a neat system that integrates really well with the new combo system that they've introduced in this game, allowing you to rack up a lot of extra damage by combining similar spells or similar fighting techniques. The combo system of Breath of Fire 4 is one of the best features of Breath of Fire 4 because it just feels really natural. You'll be racking up combos within just the first few hours of the game, and it just works really well. Dragon transformations also make a return, and they're very similar to how they were executed in Breath of Fire 3. But the difference is that instead of selecting the individual dragon genes to form your ultimate dragon, you obtain whole dragon transformations all at once, and there's no real mixing and matching. You just pick and choose the dragon that you want to transform into. But that worked out pretty well because in Breath of Fire 3, I pretty much just used the same gene combinations anyway. Also making a return from Breath of Fire 3 are the puzzle mechanics of turning the camera in order to see around corners to find hidden items and solve puzzles. This has been completely revamped though in Breath of Fire 4 because instead of just being able to turn the camera just a little way, one way or the other, instead you're actually given full control over the camera. You can turn it around a full 360 degrees. But the downside to this is that now that you're given control over the camera, the game designers didn't design the game in a way that makes it easy to navigate without having to rely on the clunky control for moving the camera around 360 degrees. And it just doesn't feel like it's as polished as Breath of Fire 3 was in that regard. It's just a little too difficult to navigate some areas, especially around tight corners and corridors. And speaking of the game's graphics, this is an excellent time for me to bring up the fact that Breath of Fire 4 is now the standard against which I will hold all sprite-based games. The graphics in this game are just absolutely beautiful. They are the pinnacle of what I've ever seen in a sprite-based game. The graphics of Breath of Fire 3 are amazing, and they've aged beautifully. The only time that I was reminded that I was playing an old PlayStation game is during boss battles, when you would actually encounter polygonal models that you would have to fight that have that grainy PlayStation texture mapping. Everything else is just absolutely gorgeous. And there's nothing about the music that didn't age well. The music in Breath of Fire 4 has a really funky, Chinese-inspired vibe that just really complements well all of the scenery in the Western continent, which are Chinese-inspired towns. I would have to say that the music of Breath of Fire 4 is probably the most memorable of any of the Breath of Fire games that I've played. Just some of those songs are amazing, just beautiful. Earlier I mentioned that the story of Breath of Fire 4 was probably one of its weakest points. But you know, I think that probably the one thing that hurt the game the most was the fact that it had to be the follow-up to Breath of Fire 3. This game is outstanding on its own, but compared to Breath of Fire 3, it is a step backward. Breath of Fire 4 is still a game that's definitely worth playing, and I highly recommend it to any fan of the series. And speaking of the series, join me next time, because I'm going to be reviewing the last game in the series, Breath of Fire 5: Dragon Quarter.